Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's October 13th, 2013, and this week we're going to discuss learning the most popular patterns of minor 9 and minor 11 chord shapes. Now, this question was sent in from Sid. He's in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada, and he wrote in with this email. I've just bought a chord app and there's a gazillion chords in it. Anyway, the main chords I wanted to get more into my playing are the minor 9 and 11. So my question is whether there's maybe a starter batch of these minor chords that I could learn the shapes for. I just want to get these chords going and into my playing because I think they are killer sounding minor chords. From Sid in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. Well, hey, thanks for writing in, Sid. You know, anyone who's ever purchased a chord book or an app for their smartphone or their tablet will generally realize pretty fast that there's a ton of chord shapes available to them for all the chord types. But if we focus ourselves on the popular extended chords of the minor 9 and the minor 11, and if we isolate only those chords found in their root position on the lower strings on the 6th and 5th, we'll narrow our list down very fast to only a small handful that will work in a majority of playing situations. So let's not waste any time and head straight to the guitar fingerboard to learn the most popular minor 9 and minor 11 chords on the guitar. Well, let's start with the minor 11 chords. If you're not familiar with the basic theory of these chord types, this chord is simply a minor 7th chord with another tone added, a 4th, above the octave. In this case here, if we're going off of an A, building on A minor 11th chord, we take the foundational notes out of the minor 7, which would be the root, minor 3rd, perfect 5th, minor 7th, which are obviously the notes of A, C, E, and G. And on top of those, we'd add a D note above the octave, giving us our minor 11th. Now, one of the most popular shapes for this chord off the 6th string is actually this one here. So we're going root, minor 7th. Here we have the minor 3rd, and then there's the 11th on top. So you can tell we're missing the 5th, and that's very common to leave out the 5th chord tone. In this case, it's an E, so there's no E note in this chord layout, and that's very common to do. Leave out the 5th. It helps a lot for creating fingering layouts on the fretboard, and you'll notice it's going to be done a lot. Now, let's go to the 5th string, though, and show you some more shapes for these minor 11s. The next one is a really cool finger stretcher here. You can see I'm doing this off of a D, so I've got the D note, and then I've got a C note, which is its minor 7, the minor 3rd up over there on 2nd string, 6th fret, and then on top, we've got that high G on the 3rd fret. That's that 4th or 11th up an octave. So that's a really nice shape. But we could also do something else. We can relocate the 3rd, that minor 3rd chord tone, drop it back a bit, and we could have this really cool sounding bar chord. That's a great one too. So this one has the root, the minor 3rd, the flat 7, and then up on top we've got an octave, and then we've got that 11th way above that yet. So let's move over next to the minor 9th chords. When it comes to the minor 9ths, the process for creating these is very similar as the way we work through the construction principles for that minor 11th. With our minor 9, it's also going to have its origins, of course, from the minor 7 chord. But this time we're adding a 2nd interval above the octave. So we're going to have our minor 7th structure. If we once again begin on an A, our chord tone degrees are going to be root, minor 3rd, perfect 5th, minor 7th. Once again, those are the A, C, E, and G notes. And on top of those, we're going to add a B up above the octave. And that'll be our 9th extension, giving us, of course, the A minor 9. Now, one of the most popular shapes for this chord off of the 6th string is this one I was just playing right here. Super popular shape for that chord. But let's also move to the 5th string root and show you some of these. This is a really nice one. I'm going to do this off D here. We're going to root it out off the middle finger at the 5th fret, D note on 5th string. We'll have a little bit of a stretch to reach back there and get the minor 3rd on the F on the, in this case, 3rd fret of the 4th string. And then we're going to have our minor 7 and our 9 up on top. You can see once again we're missing the 5th. I'm going to show you something cool right away to add that 5th back in. So anyway, this is an individually fingered one going, middle, index, ring, and then small finger. However, we could add the 5th chord tone. If you think about it off the D there, that's an A. I can add that in on top on the 1st guitar string at the 5th fret by barring with my 3rd finger. So there's a way to get that 5th into that chord right there and have all those tones. It's a great sound. Next, though, I'd like to do a quick jam on a chord progression that applies these sounds so that you can not only get used to playing these shapes, but also so that you can both hear and come to realize that you could pretty much pop these 9th or 11th minor chords into any progression that you'd normally have a minor 7th or possibly even just a minor triad in. So essentially, if the minor chord type already in use would sound pretty decent being replaced with either a minor 9 or a minor 11, then you can just go for it. Now you have to double check your harmonies. If you're going to be doing any improvising or melody composing over it, you want to make sure that there's no clashes or no possibility that the 9 or the 11 might just cause you a little bit of an issue with the scale types that you're going to be using. For example, if I was in the key of A minor and I perhaps put in that key off of the 5 chord of the key, which would normally be a E minor 7. If I made that E minor 7 chord into an E minor 9, I've added in a unique tone here into the key of A minor. You probably know already that A minor is a relative minor of C major, so there's no sharps and no flats. However, when I convert the 5 chord of that A key center over into minor 9, I wind up with an F sharp. So I would in effect have to start playing in A Dorian mode to be able to cover that sound. So just watch out for what the extensions may potentially do. So anyway, let's get back to this chord progression that I put together for this lesson. It's basically in the key of B minor. We're going to have a B minor 11 starting off, and that's going to be the 1-off 6-string root that I showed you. Then we're going to head over in the next third beat of that first measure to an A chord with B in the bass. And then we're going to change keys up a little bit here, a bit of a shift in tonality. We're going to have A minor 7 to G with A in the bass. And then we're going to come into this D minor 7 chord and then an E minor 11. So even though we start off with the tonality of B minor, we're dropping into more of the tonality of A minor after that. So here's what this progression sounds like. So you get a really rich color, really interesting sounds when you begin popping in these minor 9s and the minor 11s. So now next up, the next progression I'm going to run through is going to, of course, go into the world of the minor 9 chords. And I'd like you to try out using B minor 9 in the first measure. We're going to have a start of the chord progression on measure 1 at the B minor 7 chord, then convert that over to the B minor 9. And then we're going to run into E minor 7 to A dominant in the second bar. And then in the third bar, we'll have a shift from a D minor 9 rooted on 5th string. And that's just going to convert quickly over to a minor 7. You can do that very easily out of that minor 9 by just bringing your small finger up a half a step on that second string, and immediately you're converting your minor 9 into minor 7. Real easy to do, works out great. And then we're going to drop into a G power chord style, big open position, almost like AC/DC, Angus Young style G power chord down there. So here's what the progression sounds like when you put it all together. Since almost 90% of playing the guitar involves acting as a rhythm accompanist, learning chords is obviously one of the most important things that every guitar player needs to study. And it's also an area of playing that we need to become highly proficient at, from the basic open position chords to the movable bar chords, and of course everything else like the extensions, alterations, suspensions, chord inversions. Plus, there's the ability to do strumming and plucking and carry good rhythmic feel in general. It's a lot of work, and it will obviously take time and effort to achieve both the technique for grabbing into the shape and the commitment to memory, that's required to play the correct chord with good feel when you need to play it. Anyway, that's about all the time I have for today. As always, thanks for watching. Have yourself a great week, and I'll catch up with you next time. Bye for now.